Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range. Hey, it's Shan here. This week I speak with professional longboarder, Mr. Dane Wilson. Dane is based up in Noosa, which is in Queensland, Australia. Probably one of the most beautiful parts of the East Coast. It's so magic up there. He talks about his journey from growing up in Cronulla to how he ended up in a beautiful area like Noosa. Dane takes us on a journey through his childhood, his attraction to longboarding over shortboarding, especially as a teenager, at a time when the shortboard revolution was well underway, and, you know, he kind of challenged the stereotypes at the time of what a young person should be riding as a craft in the surf at that time. So that's really interesting. His family were responsible for manufacturing famous surf brand G&S. So he grew up in that industry from a very young age, literally being surrounded by the pioneers of surfing in this country and the world. And talks about the influences that he had throughout his life. And Dane really wants to advocate for, positive surf culture, positive vibes. So that's how he loves Noosa. Obviously, as a longboarder, it's probably got one of the best longboarding waves in the world up there. Also has an amazing surf festival that he's heavily involved in. And we go, just into that. Dane we record remotely this week, so it's online. I'm really big on good sound quality. I'm really trying hard to always improve in that area. Remote recordings are challenging for me, but I think it's a good remote recording. It's very easy to hear. And, I hope you enjoy it. So, as always, this episode is dedicated to my children, Clementine and Otis, who I hope find the inspiration and the education that I get every week from my guests. And Dane is definitely no exception to that. Shout out to mutual friend, former guest and surfer and artist, Mr. Kirk Jenkins, for connecting Dane and I. So, enjoy. It's a good one. You. Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks.
Yeah, good to be here, man. Whoa. Sit on
Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's do this. It's actually funny you mentioned that. A friend and I are talking about how a lot of men really make the situation difficult in the first 24 hours or week post-separation.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a very emotional time and emotions are running really high. Yeah, we feel like they need to be like triaged and because then what happens is they make some pretty fundamental mistakes and then that actually harms them and their time with their children for many, many years afterwards.
Yes,
so,
yes, definitely.
Yeah, like not acting on emotion, yeah.
Yeah, you're just acting with love. I actually found that acting with that, you actually walked away from it, whether it was a negative experience or a positive experience. You actually walked away from it because you never compromised on your ideals. That was the word, compromised on your ideals.
It's so true.
Because sometimes you walk away and you go, fire, why did I say that? Why did I do that? I know you know.
I mean, that happens in life. It happens, I know, but it happens in everyday life too, like whether it be with a partner or a colleague or a business transaction.
Yeah.
It's gnarly.
Oh, definitely.
I think it's the fundamental issue we have. I also think as men, because we have this real powerful hormone called testosterone, when you get that sort of flush of testosterone or an adrenaline combined in a situation that's difficult, I think people underestimate how hard it is to contain.
Yes, Yes, definitely. And then you act, and then you fly off the cuff.
Yeah, and then life gets really hard. And then, do you find there's this cycle of like guilt, shame, remorse that follows?
I liken it to, like you talk about like babies throwing all their toys out of the cot, right? Because they're angry about something and they throw all their toys out of the cot, and then all of a sudden they're crying because they've thrown all their toys out of the cot. Yeah, so you got something else to cry about. Yeah, exactly.
It's a good point. I like that analogy. I haven't heard that one. So.
Yeah.
So Dane Wilson, what a pleasure! What an absolute pleasure to spend some time with you today. Why do you feel like you're ready to tell your life story, man?
Just simply because I've kind of refrained from social media from all these years, and every now and again I look on there and I see things and whatever, but I've kind of designed my life like that because I actually felt like I needed to be present with the people that were in the room with me and listen to them, sit down and listen to what they have. And also, I also felt the need that, like, I was on social media in the early days, and I felt like when I actually saw people that I was friends with on social media, I knew all about their lives. And I didn't like that. I wanted to find out off them how they were doing, what they were up to, and actually have them share with me what they were up to. And then for myself, I kind of lived a pretty high-profile lifestyle when I was younger. And I just felt that, I liked that when I was younger, but when I got older, I just felt the need to be present with my kids or with my family or with whatever, whether it be walking the dogs on the beach. I felt the need to actually be there and actually enjoy that moment. So to come out now, I was actually talking to some good friends that have been on your podcast before, and they were talking to me and they said, "No, Dane, it's time to, share your insights or whatever there is, experiences through life." So thanks for having me.
Oh, dude, I'm stoked. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit because I know, aside from, being from a family with a very rich surf history, you're also a businessman, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so if I play devil's advocate, though, you don't feel the desire to utilise social media to assist your business and your profile?
Not really, because I actually find that it's actually kind of more, so to speak, punk to be like that these days than to be, so people understand the experience they're at. So, like, say, for example, at the moment, I've started shaping some boards, and a few of the boards I've actually been putting out there have had no logos on them, and I haven't even been signing them. Sometimes I put like a little feather on them and people look at it and go, "I want that. I love that. Where can I get that?" It's like, well, you can't. And I find that's kind of more, that's more sort of true to the core than it is, and I think, as, particularly with surfing, we're kind of, what do I say, not judgmental, but, very, a very core group of guys, girls, sorry, that, it kind of makes sense to do it that way.
I think my initial impression when I hear that is that it's a great conversation starter.
Yes.
It actually could become the catalyst for more conversations in the car park. Oh, what's that? What's that you're writing? Where'd you get that from? That sort of
stuff. Can't have it.
So, yeah, it's a catalyst, bro.
Yeah.
You can't. But here's the thing, like, do you think it's going to actually make it more desirable? Like, hey, I want to know more. Where'd you get it? And then.
Yeah. Well, especially when people people will like actually take the time and try and find it and research it and try and find it. And to be honest, like, they're actually putting their time into it rather than it being put in front of them. So therefore, it's kind of, right up there,
Dude, I can't believe you said that. My last episode, I was talking about how people are spoon-fed so much information, yet they're not taking the time to actually educate themselves properly.
Yes.
And I think we need to encourage that. Yeah, that, like they get overloaded with information, but they're just getting all this surface level of everything when they're not actually taking the time to delve deep into some research and self-educate and actually develop like real views and real opinions and things like that.
Yeah, just to and also that energy that they put into, say, researching, what is that surfboard or what is that idea or what is that, that's them spending their time trying to find that out, and the little bits they find out along the way is just like then they piece it all together and then it becomes a big piece, and then you've got a sale. And you've got a customer for life.
And it's an authentic sale.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's truly like a true sale.
Agree. It's exactly like it's an authentic sale.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, and then potentially a lifelong relationship. How cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. But, like in saying that, like, the guys that do have all that, I respect that more than anything, because they're putting their life out there and they're putting, their experiences out there and they're sharing it with the world. And, that's awesome, but I just choose not to do that.
I like it. I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier. You said in your younger years you led quite a high-profile lifestyle. For those that are unaware, would you mind just giving us some background and explain that?
Yeah, well, it probably started when I was it started when I was a little kid. Okay, can I go right back to the beginning? Right. I grew up with... Let's go. Okay, so I grew up in a surfing family, right? And I grew up with my dad and my mum. My dad's one of the pioneers of surfing in Cronulla in Sydney, and he's also a pioneer of surfboard manufacturing. So, in saying that, I grew up with all these sort of old guys, dad's mates, all these guys that would come and go from our house and stuff like that. And, as I sort of got to know them, I sort of realized, like, hey, these guys are like legends, and gradually I sort of started to follow in a lot of their footsteps. And I rode a shortboard, throughout my younger years. And then there was like a dirty little secret, I'd go longboarding with Dad and his mates up at Wanda Beach, or go to Crescent Head, and I'd be like, Dad, can I borrow your longboard? And I'd kind of do it away from all the kids at school, And then like I started hanging out with these old guys, and they started, going, you go all right, So I started doing a few little contests with them against all these old guys, and, eventually it sort of came to that at about 14 or 15, I became like a professional longboarder. And at the time that was like, what are you doing, man? Like you can't do that. And and it was, and so like I kind of got mentored. Like one of the guys that really, really, really helped me through all that was Jack Eden. Now, I don't know if you know or heard about him. He's the original surf photographer from the 60s, from the 50s and 60s. He started a magazine called Surf About Magazine. Now, he used to take me over every weekend to, every couple of weeks, and we'd go and sit down and have coffee and go surfing with like Midget Farrelly and different guys like that. We'd go over there and go have coffee with Gordon Woods and, Barry Bennett and, just all these crazy guys. But back then it was like, they were just old guys, you know what I mean? No one, they weren't like revered or anything like that. They were just like some old guy. Oh, what do you know? Oh, we know better. You should be riding what Kelly's riding, back then, it was like, what would you know, and just their old manufacturing techniques and stuff like that. So to cut a long story short, I became sort of a poster boy, a bunch of the core group of, other sort of friends who rode longboards as well. But I particularly really honed in on riding like traditional boards. Like, so I rode like the old boards from the 60s, like actually started that, and started collecting all that stuff. And And I got like a pretty high profile. Like I was riding for Quicksilver and Surf Dive and Ski. And then at 15, I just remember sitting down at the table with my mum and dad, and all these guys came around, and they were doing like a business deal. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we're buying the trademarks for GNS, for Gordon Smith surfboards. So I became at 15, became like a shareholder in all that. And I eventually went on to buy it because it was like longboarding. There wasn't a high income stream. So it was a really good way for me to actually make a profession out of it, you know? Yeah. So anyway,
Can I just go back a step?
Yeah.
Did your father start GNS?
No. Okay, sorry. I jumped forward there.
Okay.
But, okay, so back in 1966, Dad and a few of his mates, like Bob Brown, blonde Bob Brown, who was Bobby Brown's best mate, were apprenticed by Floyd Smith. Now, like, that doesn't seem like a lot. Floyd Smith came over from America. He'd started GNS in America and then decided to set it up in Australia. And he travelled all around the north side, and then he came to the south side and just went, oh, this is my spot, you know. And so he came over with, like, the knowledge. You know, his team riders in America were Skip Fry and Mike Hinson and, like, Butch Van Aertsdale and just all these crazy dudes, you know. So he came over with those ideas. So it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like a, you know, real pivotal moment in Australian surfing, because it was really the first time that the American influence had actually come over here. So he apprenticed my dad, and it was actually quite interesting. You know, he talked to Dad, and, you know, he'd just finished his, I think, a mechanical engineering apprenticeship. And his dad, who was an old war veteran, you know, Second World War veteran, he said to his dad, oh, Dad, I'm gonna go make these surfboard things. And it was kind of like, to like his dad in the 60s, it was kind of like, what are you going to make hula hoops or something, you know? You know, that's just a fad. That'll go away, you know, like, you know. And now, like, fast forward, you know, my grandfather's great-grandchildren are actually surfing, you know. So it's like, you know, it's pretty cool, you know.
So epic. Oh, look, I guess a really obvious question that's come up for me is, you said you started on a shortboard and then you had this dirty little secret of riding longboards. What originally attracted you to the longboarding as opposed to the shortboarding?
Oh, just the fact that, like, okay, I like it. Okay, so this is really cool. So you watch birds fly, right? Okay, so you watch, like, say a land bird as like a pigeon or a pigeon, and it flies and it like flaps its wings. It gets out and flaps its wings and just flaps, you know. And then you see, like, these majestic, like, eagles, and you see these albatrosses and just these, like, really, like, majestic birds, and they're just, like, sitting there, and they don't even flap their wings. They're just, like, flying like that. The pigeon or the land-based bird kind of reminds me of, like, the shortboard, where you've actually got to, you know, flap your wings all the time. But just the longboard was just like, you know, and it was just like, I just loved it, you know.
It's the albatross.
Yeah, it's the albatross.
It's the albatross.
Yeah.
Dude, I had 3-time longboarding world champion Taylor Jensen on here.
Yeah.
And I asked him the same question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I asked him the same question, and he said, you cannot compare laying rail when you've got, like, you know, 8 to 9 foot of rail in the water doing a carve.
Yeah. Yeah.
He goes, I'm so addicted to that feeling. He's like, and he goes, and it takes work and time to build up to that level. He goes, but, you know, you lay that much rail in the water, he goes, the feeling's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I get it, you know. Dude, that guy.
Yeah.
Wow. He throws those things around. He's such a big man, right?
Yeah, he's a huge human.
And I remember a friend of mine, Dean Fraser from Cronulla, used to shape for.
Oh, yeah. I love Dino. Yeah, Dino's a good friend.
Dino, yeah. I remember years ago he made me just like it was a thruster, but it was like really flat and long, a bit longer than I usually ride. And
And I remember doing a cut back at this place in Wollongong called The Farm. It's a bit of a fatter wave. And I had that experience of like, wow, like it just held rail the whole way through the turn. And I didn't have to, as you say, didn't have to flap that thing. You know what I mean? So it's cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I want to keep going back to your journey. Like, so you said at 15 years of age, you actually bought GNS or the rights to GNS in Australia. Is that correct?
Me and my parents. So it was like, it wasn't much, but you know, like
Wow.
it was just a trademark. It was just a file. And it was bought off like, you know, family friends. And we just bought all the shares and then just started working on it, you know, just resurrecting it. You know, I bought out my own model through them. So it was just like, as a kid, you know, like having like this knowledge of surfing history, it was kind of like, you know, being a race car driver and driving for Ferrari or something like that. You know, like, man, I've got this responsibility. Look at me, you know what I mean? But then, like, you know, at that sort of time, I'd go to school and I remember I won like an Australian title, and they were like sort of reluctant to actually give me an award because they were like, but it's not real surfing. And I was like, okay, thanks. You know, and,
It's not real surfing.
yeah, and I was like looking at the principal going, who are you to tell me that?
On a social level, though, I mean, I think longboarding's cool personally, but as a young person, as a teenager, probably wasn't as socially cool. It was like an old guy's thing to do. You know, what was the feedback from your peers at that time?
Well, okay, so this is a really good point. So I at that point I was kind of like copping a bit of flack off my peers and stuff like that. I wouldn't talk about it very much, you know, to my peers. Like I had friends that I surfed with, but most of the time I'd just go surfing up, wander with all the old guys. So my best friends were like, you know, in their 50s and 60s at the time, because they're the guys that really, you know, and I had so much fun with them, you know, just these old guys with so much life experience, like, you know, guys like Gary Birdsall and, you know, Frank Ladder and Bob Brown and just all these guys, like, were just awesome, you know. They were just such, like, they'd learned so much in their lives, and, you know, they were at the sort of stage, and at the stage of their life where they were prepared to sort of, like, give that information, you know, because you probably know it yourself, like, you know, when you're younger, you sort of like, you just want to forge your own path. You don't want to sort of mentor anyone, you know, to help you, you know.
You mentioned that you purchased that brand with your family, with your parents.
Yeah.
How would you describe your relationship with your parents?
Oh, they're my best friends. You know, like we traveled so many places together. We traveled all up and down the coast and, like, you know, stay with mum and dad's friends, you know, like Crescent Head, you know, Central Coast, up to the Gold Coast, up to Noosa, just stay at people's houses. So, like, you know, it was actually a pretty good time, you know, so my relationship with them is like really, really rock solid. Dad's just getting back into surfing. He's had a shoulder problem, but mum's awesome. Mum's an artist. Yeah, she's an artist of the highest order. You know, she's got a sewing machine and she's buying materials and making baby clothes and makes me a towel and puts a little thing on it. You know, like, she's still, like, just awesome, you know.
Yeah, what's her predominant medium that she utilises?
She's mainly does sewing now. So she does sewing. Like, so when I was a little kid, she used to me and her used to make Cabbage Patch clothes together with a sewing machine. Remember Cabbage Patch Kids?
Like for Cabbage Patch dolls?
For Cabbage Patch dolls.
Kids with dolls?
We had a business where we'd make like, this is when I was like 8, 9, 10. We'd make clothing for Cabbage Patch dolls. It was kind of weird, but it was like, you know, it was really good. We'd go to markets and stuff like that and do all that. So, and I grew up with 3 older sisters, so I kind of had that, I had that bond with my mum because I was the only boy, and she wanted to teach me to respect women and stuff like that. So by doing that sort of stuff, it was like it kind of really, I got in touch with my feminine side quite a bit when I was younger, which kind of led me, to those sort of alternative lifestyle choices when I was kind of, in my teens,
Such as?
Oh, like riding a longboard?
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I don't regard that as an alternative,
It was back
when
then.
you say alternative lifestyle choices, I'm like,
Yeah. So,
I guess.
yeah.
I guess. I mean,
it definitely was. It wasn't a mainstream thing. It was like,
okay.
yeah. And to go back on your point before, what did my peers say about this? Especially my surfing peers, the guys that I surf with, because I grew up in Cronulla. I did get a lot of negative feedback from the shortboard guys, riding the point, the island and stuff like that, Shark Island and stuff like that. So you know what I did? I just went out there on the biggest days on my longboard and just went hard. It was like I used to get smashed, but I'd do it. I'd totally take the inside.
You'd hit the points on your longboard.
Yeah, definitely.
Like at places like Vui and Shark Island and stuff like that.
A little bit of Voodoo, a little bit of Suck Rock, but mostly Cronulla Point, a little bit the island.
Okay.
That was a real sort of thing for me to kind of get that respect, which I got, which is cool.
Yeah. Wow, man. So
yeah.
With your sisters, were they surfers?
No, but the good part is all their boyfriends were all their boyfriends and all their friends and stuff like that were all surfers. So, it was pretty cool, Like all my brother-in-laws are still all my best friends these days, So they actually live down in Wollongong.
Once you took over GNS and you're making your sisters?
Yeah, they all live in Wollongong.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. I do.
Yeah.
I love Wollongong. I really love it.
I love it too.
The surf's not that great here. And we miss so much South. We miss so much South Swell, but it's a great place to live. It's
not far to get it though. It's not far to catch that South Swell.
You're in Noosa these days, correct?
Yeah, I don't get any South Swell.
Were you drawn to that area for the longboarding scene originally, or was it things beyond that?
Well, for me, at the particular point when I came in, I think it was 2008 when I first moved up here. I was offered a job setting up a big surf store for Golden Breed, which was kind of iconic because it was it was a blank canvas. I got to sort of set up a vibe and, but being drawn to Noosa, this place is just beautiful. It's actually heaven. I came up here with the knowledge that I was going to have kids up here, and it was maybe the best place on earth to raise kids. Just because it's got it's similar to Wollongong. It's kind of got that small town vibe, but it's got everything that you need, and then surrounded by so much natural beauty. And when the points are on, nice, there's nothing better. And you've got nothing better.
Is Noosa Point the best longboard wave in the world? It has to be, like tea tree and all that. So much.
At the moment, no. The sand is too intense. It's actually the sand's, it's actually creating if you look at waves like say for example, Malibu in California, which is, known as, possibly the best longboard wave. It's actually quite a fat wave, really. It's not top to bottom. If you looked at it, shooting through a, photographer's lens, no one on it, it'd just look like Bellambi, like what you have down there, But, you look at Noosa, and if you shot a still shot of Noosa at 2 foot, it'd actually look like Mini Kira, top to bottom, the way that the wave, So in saying that, it's actually sometimes hard. You want a wave that's kind of a little bit slower, just because then your board goes at the speed of the wave. You're not going too fast to actually execute proper maneuvers.
Can't you shape boards that match the pace?
I can. Yeah, you can.
But does that mean you're going? But then you got to go shorter, right?
Yeah, it's mainly to do with the sand at the moment. What I was saying before is when the points don't have too much sand on them, they're actually like perfect. They go at the right pace. But at the moment the wave's a little bit fast. You've probably seen like last summer they had that big swell and it looked like Kira. It was like top to bottom and just freight training down the line. It was epic. So good. I rode my shortboard all week.
Yeah. I was going to say, what were you riding those days? Yeah.
Everything. You just load your car up and just leave it there and like longboard for when it gets a bit, like fatter or, and the tide's a bit high, and then you have your, your single fin channel bottom or quad fin fish or a mid length if it's a bit crowded and still sort of top to bottom, That's epic.
Yeah. I mean, are you someone that likes to sit? What's like the far point of that? Is it like the boiling pot? Or is it
granite.
What do they call that?
Boiling pot's out the back of
granite's
Nationals.
around the back of it, but
granite's the furthest point
on those
around.
Big days.
Yeah, sometimes that washes through a little bit too much. It sort of doesn't actually hit the bank. It sort of hits off a sort of semi sort of sand bit of reef off there, so it sort of sits wide, and then the energy is always wide. But once you get to sort of say boiling pot, that's when it's like if the swell's big, that's where you want to sort of take off.
So sick. Yeah, it looks so good. Such a beautiful headland, man, that national park. Just going back a little bit, so I want to get into your competitive surfing as a younger person. So, like you said, your family, you guys took over GNS in Australia, and then you were surfing competitively through your teens, and that extended into your 20s. Is that correct?
I actually still compete today.
Traveling the world?
Yeah, still traveling all around the world. So I'd spend a lot of time in Spain and like a lot of time in Europe. It was ASP back then.
Okay.
But in saying that, there was always like surf festivals. So, we'd go to, say, the Biarritz Surf Festival, which wasn't an ASP contest back then or a WSL contest back then. It was just more of a gathering of just legends, like you'd have Mickey Dora show up on the beach or, and it's just like, oh, hell, and just different legends doing, talks or whatever. So that was kind of the way the contest scenes were kind of structured,
So you obviously were traveling the world. I mean, those experiences must have been amazing. I mean, how hard was it to avoid getting involved in more like the party side of things and just the fun of it as opposed to the actual core activity of surfing?
Well, that's a good part because, now we look at, say, a WSL contest and they've got their headphones on and they've got their glasses on and they've got their coach there and they're, all that sort of stuff. It was so far removed from that because it was kind of, because we were going to, say, a festival atmosphere, it was like, man, get amongst it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Go and have a few drinks or go and party with your friends, We'll go surfing in the morning. The surf will be there in the morning. Just don't be too hungover. So, that's the kind of vibe of the longboard community, It's kind of like, we surf and we're hardcore, but you know what? We like to have fun.
What would you regard as your favourite festival or competition then?
Well, to be honest, I really love the Noosa Surf Festival. I always have. I've loved it since I was a little kid.
I knew you were going to say that.
And simply because, you do get all those people from all around the world, like you get, like I was saying, you have like, say, Mickey Dora and Nat Young and, just all these guys, Bob McTavish, and they're all doing their different speeches or their different nights and there's a different movie on and, and then all these guys that are talking, are all, competing in the over 70s or the over 50s or something like that. And then there's, you know, people that you haven't seen in years, and they just decide to rock up, and you go surfing with them, you have a few beers with them, and it's actually kind of, I guess, how surfing was kind of designed originally, you know, like it's like that's what we're meant to be doing with surfing, you know, we're meant to be having fun. It's meant to be that thing that kind of, you know, for the average guy, it's meant to be that thing that we actually do in between, you know, we wake up on a Saturday morning, you know, we go and have fun, you know, and to go back into the festival side of things, you know, like it's kind of like, it is fun, and we're there to promote that, and we're there to embrace that, you know.
I mean, it's funny because there's been a lot of discussion around surf culture, and even on the podcast, the last few episodes, I had a guest. I don't know, a few episodes back. He's from New Zealand, awesome surfer, really nice guy, but he makes satirical, you know, clips about surf culture, you know, and he's the Raglan Surf Report guy. And
I've seen that guy.
You know, there's this emerging theme of people getting, you know, surfing is so popular now. You know, it's more popular than ever, which is understandable. It's a great thing to do, but with that comes, I think, some angst. There's always been angst from older surfers, but also for some people, it's just not fun anymore having to deal with crowds and some of the aggression that can emerge. I mean, how do you navigate that, and what's your opinion on those things?
Well, I kind of liken the way that the surfing kind of has gone in the last, you know, since post-pandemic sort of thing. So pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Post-pandemic, it's kind of like, I kind of liken it, you know, you've got all these guys who've been part of the surfing scene, and there's all these new people arriving. It's kind of like they've walked into their bar, and it's like their old school bar, you know, they've always sat at the same seat, you know, the pool table, the pokies, you know, and someone's remodeled it, and they've put on new music, and they've changed the menu on the bistro, and they've got all new beers, and they've got like 20 beers, and it's like, mate, I just wanted a VB, you know, I just want to sit on my stool and have a VB. But like since then, I kind of re-thought about it, you know, like, and back in the 60s, Phil Edwards was interviewed on, like, you know, ABC America or something like that about surfing. And they said, who's the best surfer in the water? And he said, the best surfer's the one having the most fun. So I thought about that, and I sort of recoined it. And I thought about it, and it's like, no, the best surfer in the water isn't the one having the most fun. The best surfer in the water is the one having the most fun with everyone. You know, so encouraging everyone to have fun. You know, if everyone's having fun, it's a good vibe. You know, there's no problems. If someone decides to be a jerk, well, you know what? They'll be alienated.
Yeah, that's true. But by the way, you have some of the best analogies ever. It's like another really good analogy, like the pub analogy.
Yeah, well, it's kind of true.
I mean, me personally, I do think older. I'm going to say, I feel that the older, more experienced surfers have a responsibility to set the tone for the culture. They really can.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're not going to stop. No one's going to stop doing it. But I think, there's some responsibility there. So instead of complaining, maybe take some ownership of it, and spread the good vibes. Yeah,
have fun. Like, you know, like
have fun.
I actually did this thing with, like, we're going to talk about it later, but I actually had real bad depression a couple of years, like probably 2015, 2016, and went to see a psychologist about it. And, you know, like, I was pretty bad. And I spoke to her, and she was like, you know what, you've got a lot of knowledge there. You need to, you know, share that knowledge. And I got a lot of actually made me feel good that I actually had good knowledge to spread to people. But one of the things was I taught these, and I took on a core group of women, and these were like middle-aged women who were learning to surf, and that's how I sort of started teaching people to surf. So I took on these, and I taught them everything from how to tie their boards on the car to, how to paddle out the back to how to roll under waves, all this sort of stuff. So eventually we got to, way down the track, it was like, okay, so we paddled out at Tea Tree, and we were like, and they were like, how do I navigate this lineup? It's so intimidating. And I'm like, all right, so what you need to do is, and this is lesson for anyone who's listening, find the best surfer in the water, watch him catch a wave, hoot him, give him a hoot, give him a shaka when he's on his wave, he does a good maneuver, and then tell him that was a really good wave, man. You know what? Automatically, those women did that, and they felt accepted, and that guy was out in the water, he felt good. And it just set this whole tone throughout the whole lineup. It was like, everyone's cool now.
It melts people, bro. I do it too. Yeah. Like the most icy, cold-looking people. You see some surfers, they have this barricade up in the surf. They don't want to say good morning, or they just got these hard looks on their face. And you do that, they can't not melt. It's amazing. And next thing you know, they're offering you waves. It's bizarre.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the way it should be.
Yes, it's a fucking... I'm just so stoked. Like, I feel like I'm on a bit of a mission to keep spreading these themes of what you just said, dude. It's rad. I love it. But I want to...
thank you.
I'm going to hit you up because you did mention it, and only if you feel comfortable. But do you mind if I ask what was spiking a bit of a depressive period in your life there?
Yeah, it was actually quite weird. Like, so I moved up to Noosa, and I moved away from one of my friends, and I was up here and I was working at a surf shop, and all of a sudden I felt the need to change my lifestyle. And fast forward a couple of years, I actually ended up working at the airport wearing a fluoro shirt, like punching the time clock, driving to Brisbane, like driving an hour and a half every day to work. I was just like, I actually like laughed about it because it was like every morning, all these guys would get off the bus in their fluoro shirts, and we'd be like, March of the Fluoro Penguins. It was kind of like this, marching down the street in fluoro shirts. And you know what? I hated my life. I hated everything about it. I wasn't surfing much because I was doing shift work. And, I felt like I drifted so far from the core of what I actually wanted to do in my life. But, I drifted so far from my ideals, which is like wake up, watch the sunrise, go surfing, take the dogs for a walk, just like all that, go to work, And, it sort of led to, a depression, and, with the depression, it's kind of, like you've probably heard heaps of people talk about it, but when you're in it, you kind of like, you can't see your way out, so teaching that group of ladies, they might not know this to this day, but they saved my life.
Is it because you were getting out of your own head and being of service to other people?
Oh, definitely. Well, it actually made me feel like the knowledge that I had, or everything I'd learned up until this point, because at that point where I was driving to work wearing the fluoro shirt, it felt like everything I'd learned was like irrelevant, But then it sort of made me feel, by doing that, it actually made me feel that, what you've learned since you were 10, 12, 15, was really valuable to like the community, and it actually was important.
That's what I've learned over time, is that depression, anxiety sometimes can be a gift. They're indicators that you're not living right. They're just indicators, They're signals from your body having a physiological reaction to the way you're living. It's like if you eat bad food, your body's going to tell you about it. It's the same thing. You're consuming consuming a lifestyle that doesn't suit you or you don't want. And I'm curious though, did you have to do that job at the airport? Was it like a financial issue?
Yeah,
too good. What did you get into that?
Okay, so I worked. When my son was born. So when my son was Elvis, I've got two kids. Elvis, who's 11, He's turning 11. And then I've got Rio, little girl. She's 8. So when Elvis was born, I was working. I actually took a year off. I worked from home, which was back in those days was kind of unheard of. I actually worked from home. I actually had a gig working for GoPro back in those days, back in the early days. Yeah, that's a whole different story. But so that contract came to an end, and it was like my wife at the time was like, if you don't find a job, I'm going to find you one. And I was like, okay. And I didn't find a job, and then she found me one. And, like I was willing to do it. Like I just wanted to support my family, and it was like, oh, do you want to do overtime? And then I'd find myself working 6 days in a week, and, like one thing leads to another. And, like being surrounded by a bunch of unhappy dudes, like 90% of them were unhappy. The other 10% were legends, But that's kind of what got me there,
Yeah. So how long did that last, though? That
5
job?
years. 5 years. That was the toughest period.
How'd you wriggle out of it? Was it?
Yeah. Well, it was. I don't really want to. Okay. So what happened was, I spoke to a friend, and Rip Curl, obviously Rip Curl. Rip Curl offered me a big gig managing one of their flagship stores. So to this day, I still work for Rip Curl and do all my other stuff on the side. But they were an awesome company to work for, like just coming in there, and they were just like, yeah, welcome to the family, bro. And I was like, oh, I'm home. You know what I mean? So it was actually just, it was one of those points in my life where I was like, and like you feel like you've just, you've conquered something, because you've actually put that, hey, you like this. I went and threw my boots in the ocean, my work boots, and I didn't wear shoes for like.
Did you?
Yeah, and I didn't wear shoes for like 3 weeks.
At your new job?
Yeah.
Or just in general?
Just in general.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just letting go of the past, eh?
Oh yeah, definitely. It was such a tough time.
So you're still working for the actual store? Are you like managing the store, or?
Yeah, I've been managing it for 5. I've managed it for 5 years. I kind of, but I'm taking on a new venture next week, which I can't. I've just got a friend who's setting up something else, and we're going to go do that. But like with Rip Curl, those guys are legends. And love all those guys. It's just I just don't want to be
Neil Ridgway.
I just want new challenges.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
Nice, man. I mean, shaping boards the whole time, as well as doing that.
Yeah. Well, just learning. Like I want to just go on the record now and say, hey, I'm not a craftsman at all. It's more my philosophies and ideas that I kind of experiment with. It's more for my own fun, rather than trying to make money out of it or anything like that. Like if I do it right, like in saying that, I've already got a paid gig doing it, but just relearning, like, how does that feel? What happens if you don't put a concave in the nose of your longboard? What happens if you flatten out your rocker? What happens if you do that? And like, I've always felt bad over the years of pushing shapers, like, can we do this? You know what I mean? And they're like, oh, no, you can't do that. No, I can't, man. No, don't go down that road. It's go like shit, And I'm like, come on, man. So, like, you know what I mean? I don't want to put my name on it. You know what I mean? So like it's been really good, and I've kind of been.
You've had that.
What do you mean? Oh, I get yeah, but like
you've had shapers go.
Yeah, I'm not signing that. Yeah. Anyway, so
that's hilarious, dude.
So working with the guys from Laguna Bay Longboards. And a guy called Andy Warhurst.
Okay. Yeah.
You've heard of Andrew Warhurst? He's like,
Okay.
these guys are really good. They're craftsmen, right? Yeah, just getting those guys to teach me, and they've got a shaping machine and computers and all that sort of stuff. So I sit up like late nights, with my laptop, like doing rockers and changing foils and stuff like that. So it's pretty fun.
Okay, well, let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit. Machined boards, I mean, pretty much every board's machined these days, right? How do you feel about that compared to a hand-shaped board? Does a machine board have less soul than one that's done purely by hand?
Well, I'll just put it to you this way, right? I had a guy in the shop one day and he came in and he was looking at the Darren DHD boards. He's like, did Darren hand shape this? And I'm like, no, it's done on a machine. And he was a pool builder. And I said to him, I said, oh, listen, man. So do you build pools? And he's like, yeah. I said, how much would it cost me for you to come around to my house with your shovel and dig the pool with a shovel? I want you to dig it. And then tell me that you'll get it exactly right. And he was kind of like, oh, I won't do that. And I'm like, well, it's the same thing with, say, like you talk about like Darren Hanley or, JS or any of those top guys, the fact that they can actually print on a computer and then concentrate on the subtleties of making your board, it actually goes a long way. They can, instead of spending, maybe 2 hours planing and finding the board in the blank and, like going back and measuring. It's about 2 hours there, of actually doing that. And then, then they're over it and they're just, it's not cost effective for them. And also the replication process is not there. So, I think the computers and the machines are the best thing that's ever happened to surfing. Like, not that that's the best thing that happened to surfing, but, for replication and, continuity of designs and stuff like that, it's so important.
And I had Shaper years ago now. I had Nev Hyman on here as a guest. And he feel like he kind of pioneered the machine process purely because he was in such high demand. And he relates a story back to he was really in demand in Japan, and so he went over there to do some shaping. I don't know when it was, probably in the 80s. And he said that he was banging out, 19 boards a day, 19, 20 boards a day. And he said he was just exhausted. And he said it just wasn't sustainable, wasn't cost effective, but also it wasn't consistent.
Yeah.
And he said these days that, machined boards, in terms of giving value to a customer, they're getting a much better product. There's no doubt about it. The process has become so good. And especially because, like, from what I understand, and I'm not involved in the industry, it seems like it's a really tough gig for board manufacturers to make any money. Like, it's expensive and foam's expensive and all that. Blanks are expensive, and it's like the only way to sustain it if we want to keep writing good boards. And like you said, if shapers actually want to progress the sport as well, would that be accurate analysis?
Yeah, and also if you want to progress your own surfing, like if you said, okay, I've got this board, it goes really good. I just want to tweak one thing. Now, if someone hand planed that board, there'd probably be slight variances or whatever. You can actually get that board, off that file, replicate it, change that thing, and and it might be just a basic. It's anyone who bags it, just tell them to get a shovel and go dig their own pool.
So you'll only shape longboards? Is that you won't try and
I do shape
other size boards? You won't even look at single fins? So what are you doing?
Oh man, I've got heaps on my computer, but I haven't shaped them. If you know what I mean. So I've got all the files there, but I haven't shaped. Okay. Haven't shaped a lot of them. I'm just sticking to the main. What I know, what I can. What I can actually like understand, what I can change, what I can, that's kind of my, my forte.
Favorite surfers. Let's go. Tell me who your favorite surfers are.
We'll start with Phil Edwards. Just that guy, like, he was, one of the pioneers of the polyester, balsa boards. Obviously Mickey Dora, just just not so much for his surfing, just his attitude. Just loved his attitude. Just so punk. He was punk before there was punks. You know. Then you go into like Midget, who was just like, Midget was just a class act, and he was just such an, the way he could articulate ideas was just next level. He was just such a wordsmith, and just such a, you wouldn't call him a humble person, but he was very, he was very true to his word. Then you got like Nat Young. Nat Young just, took whatever Midget and all them and sort of blazed the path that they'd blazed. He just took it. He just tore down that wall. He's the animal. Love him. Just such a legend. Then you go through like MP and guys like that. Through the 80s, Mark Richards, Tom, all those sort of guys. But, there's so many great surfers to mention, but, there's too many to mention.
You've sort of gone through the history of time. Well, give me. I know, like that's great. You've gone through the history, like sort of the older guys. But what about modern day? How you feel about some modern day surfers? Who are some standouts for you?
You know what? I've got a major crush on John Florence. Not a crush, but it's like, I just really dig the way he surfs. He kind of does everything different. He's got a different line. But the thing that kind of strikes me most about him is that he's really a surfer. Like every time he's won a world title, I feel like surfing, such and such won. No, surfing won on the day. Good surfing, a surfer, someone who wakes up in the morning, the last thing they do before they go to bed is check the swell forecast. Never a scandal, never a problem. Just wants to go surfing or sailing or just be on the ocean or just be a dude.
Well, it's hard not to love him. I agree. I remember I seen him. I was at the Rip Curl Pro, I don't know, a few years ago, before the pandemic. I can't remember the actual date. Anyway, and it was the first time I'd seen John surfing in real life. And it was a free surf. The comp was off for a few hours, waiting for tide change or something, and it was just again, like all the best surfers are out there, warming up, practicing. And then John would get a wave and you're like, okay, I'm watching something different here. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And for me personally, because I'm really into skateboarding, and I just was like, he just had that innovative skate mind and approach to the wave. That's how I read it. That's what hit me in the heart. I was like, okay, I see the skateboarder in him because I know he's into it.
Oh, yeah.
Well. And it was just great to watch, yeah. And I think too, just that Hawaiian power that was bred into him. You can just see it. I don't know what it is.
And just that, that lack of apprehension in those sort of tight moments. Like you see him at Pipe, and he's just so lazy and kind of, and then you're like, and then you just chaos around him. Like Jerry Lopez. Like they've just got this chaos. Just there's chaos all around them. But they're just cool. In the middle of it, just cool.
They are. Mm. Speaking of Jerry Lopez, did you see his new movie that came out? The Yin and the Yang with Jerry Lopez?
I haven't, I want to see it.
Apparently it's epic.
Oh, yeah, it would be epic. That
Apparently
guy's
it's epic.
Next level.
And my friend, he is, but what I love about him is humility. And he apparently, my friend Tim sent me a clip of it when he was watching it. And Jerry Lopez makes an amends to every surfer that he burnt in the surf or was aggressive to. Apparently he was quite aggressive back in the day, and he said, I'm really sorry to anyone that I took a wave off, I snaked, I dropped in, and it's, it was really, I just find that really interesting. Not many surfers from that era have done that. It's pretty cool.
Oh man, he blazed a trail that they're still taking today. Not so much obviously in the water, but to do that outside, do what he did outside of the water with his yoga, with all the the spiritual sort of things. Like going living in the mountains. It's just such a good path to follow for a lot of people. Surfing's quite
a time-consuming endeavour. And being a parent over the years, how have you found the clash of parenting and having a deep passion for the art of surfing?
Yeah, that's the thing, you know, like I think you become to appreciate it more because, you know, as you become a parent and, you know, like you wake up and you got kids and you look outside and it's like, oh my God, that tree is moving exactly right. So the wind's exactly right. I know the swell's good. I'm just going to sit here and watch Peppa Pig and just forget about it. But it's kind of like, you know, when you do have that good day, you just come to realize that, you know what, this is a good day, and you kind of realize it. Whereas if it's, you know, available to you 24/7 or, you know, like not 24/7, but daylight hours, if it's available to you 24/7, it doesn't seem like such a luxury, you know. So when you actually get that time when the stars align and you get to surf good waves and, you know, you actually appreciate it more.
My friend, a good friend of mine from Wollongong, he's a great surfer from Port Kembla. And I found when he had his first kid, oh God, this was like 15 years ago, he stopped surfing for, like, he just all of a sudden, like, Nate's gone, you know, he's not surfing with us in the mornings. I'm like, oh, where is he? But I noticed, I feel like his surfing got better after he had kids because when he did have he always put his kids first, his family first. He's such a mentor to me that way. But when he did get his surfs in, man, he made every moment count. And it's like his surfing actually got better. He got like dad power, you know. It's really good.
Yeah. I actually found that. I actually found that, you know, like you actually sort of concentrated a lot more, you know, like because, you know, you might say, all right, so I've got 6 waves. You know, I've got 45 minutes. You know what I mean? So you actually, you know, plan it out right. You know, I actually used to do it because I knew I only had 45 minutes. I'd kind of go in there with like a, you know, the heat strategy where I was like, okay, so where are the best waves? You know, like where am I, not burn anyone or anything like that. Totally respectful that way. But you know, you actually, and it means more. You come out and then you go back and you're a better dad. You know what I mean? You actually sit there and you watch Peppa Pig and you start laughing, go, it's funny. You know,
is your partner supportive of that?
My current partner, my current partner is a marine mammals trainer. So she trains like dolphins and seals and penguins, and yeah, she's like next level. She's an epic human, and she comes with dogs and animals and all kinds of stuff. So, you know, she's always like, let's get up early. I'll take the dogs down the beach and you can go surfing and I'm going to go see if I can see some whales. And, you know, I'm like, I love you.
Well, I mean, it seems like you're both people of the ocean and have similar values. I mean, isn't that the key to successful relationships?
Oh, yeah. I think the key is, like, just maintaining your own personality, your own life, you know, like, and in saying that, it's a matter of those two personalities and those two lives actually intertwining together, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that's it. And like, I think, but I still believe that, yeah, the core values need to be aligned. But I think you made the best point there that you can't lose your individuality. I think that's, otherwise it's not sustainable. And I remember when I did an episode with mutual friend Slippery Surfer.
I love that guy.
He surprises me, that guy. He's got a real depth to him. I love him.
He's turning into his father.
Actually,
he's turned into his father. He's a Terminator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In what way? Is his dad like that?
Oh, John was okay. So John, when we were growing up, you know, like he'd be like, okay, I'll meet you at Blakehurst Yumcha for lunch. And he'd be sitting there and he'd be sitting there in his towel around the pool. And me and Todd would go get ready and we'd jump in the car and we'd drive off. And then we'd get to Blakehurst Yumcha and there's John sitting there at the table in a suit. and we've driven the shortest way there, and we're like, how did you do that? You know, but John was just like that. He was just like, you know, he was such a good mentor to all us kids, his dad, you know. Sorry to get off there, but yeah, he's such a good dude, eh?
Yeah. I mean, it's just sort of resonated what you said in terms of the importance of, I think it's also like staying true to yourself and your passions. And, you know, I speak to a lot of people who have passions, and I'm realizing more and more just to have a passion in the first place is such a gift. And it's going to make you a happier human. And like you just said, if you're sticking to your passions, then all of a sudden Peppa Pig becomes palatable and funny, right? You know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, it's like, this is cool. But going back to what you said, I think if you don't follow your passions with your partner or whatever, you end up in a compromise, and you know, and then you both start compromising, and then all of a sudden both of you are just in compromised life. You know, you're not doing what you want to do, she's not doing what she wants to do, and then like you're both unhappy because, you know, each other is the catalyst for that compromise.
Yeah, it leads to resentment, right?
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately. Man, it's really interesting, like now that I've had kids myself, this concept of legacy is something that really comes up in my mind a lot. I think, well, what's my legacy? Like, are my children, like, you know, how am I going to be remembered in this life? You know, and am I going to be remembered purely for my children? You know, it's like many people are. And I think you can have multiple legacies, but I'm just going to hit you with a bit of a heavy question, and I do ask a lot of guests this. Like, what do you want your legacy in this life to be?
I just want to have the most fun out of anyone. I just want to laugh at everything. And like, to be honest, like that's going to be my biggest legacy. Like, you know, the fact that I maybe in a small way, maybe taught the world to have fun a little bit more, you know, through surfing, have fun with their surfing, have fun with, you know, and then Peppa Pig becomes more palatable, you know, so then you're laughing at something that you wouldn't normally laugh at. Just because you had a good day, you know, and you made friends with that angry guy out the back, and you know what, he's your mate now, and you have beers with him, and you know what I mean? Like, everyone's just got to just be cool.
Yeah, I love that, man. For some unfortunate reason, over the last 3 or 4 years, I've had a lot of funerals to go to. I guess I'm in my mid-40s, and, you know, just how life goes, you know. And, you know, I've just become really curious when I listen to eulogies. I really have. I know it sounds like a morbid thing to talk about, but it is a reality of our life.
That's true.
We are going to move on one day. And, you know, not one funeral I've ever been to have I heard people talk about the houses that person owned or the cars that person owned. It's always like, so-and-so loved the ocean. So-and-so loved to have a laugh with his mates down at the bar. So-and-so was an avid golfer, you know, and it just keeps hitting me harder and harder. I'm just like, more than ever, we have to go all in my opinion, on the things that we love to do. It's almost like a sense of duty. Yeah. I think. And then you've kind of just said that again as well. And thank you for sharing that, bro.
Yeah, it's not he who dies with the most toys. It's he who had the most fun using them.
There it is. That's you. That's you, man. And you're making your own toys. Yeah.
Yeah, my own ones.
Maybe you can make me a mid-length. Everyone's riding mid-lengths.
Yeah, you want one?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Let's do it.
I've been riding, I ride 20s a lot, real short, wide, fat 20s. But I've been in Bali like 4 times this year, doing various things, and I was riding like a longer shortboard, even on the smaller days at Ulus, and man, I loved having a bit of length under me. I just got programmed to, I've got to ride short. You know, I'm riding like 5.5s and 5.6s, and I'm like, man, I'm done. And then I see these guys on mid-lengths having their best time. Some people get frustrated with them, like, oh, they're sliding in earlier. I'm like, well, are they sliding in earlier? Or are they just riding the right board for the conditions, you know?
And like, you're probably feeling You're probably feeling more that albatross feeling than the flapping feeling. Oh, it is like, you know, you're kind of like, phew, okay. You're like a little chip in to kind of set the line. And,
swooping.
oh, there's the right spot there. You're not like
MR bottom turns.
hopefully I can get to that bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing. Like, and I think too, so many surfers, definitely myself included, you get so stuck on your ways. It's like, well, this is what I've always ridden. I've always ridden boards this length and this many liters and this thickness, whatever. And it's, just we're creatures of habit, you know. We stick to what we think we know. And so I'm actually ready to branch out. So
all right,
might have to hit you up for some advice.
Let's do one.
Let's do it.
I'll surprise you.
Outside of yes. What were you going to say?
Oh, whereabouts are you surfing?
I don't know if you know Wollongong. You would know Wollongong quite well.
Yeah.
You know, lots of beaches. We have.
Yeah.
You know, I'm surfing a lot of beaches. I live right near a place called East Corrimal. It's a great, fun little beachy.
Yeah.
Kind of a fatter wave. You
I know that.
Mixture of longboards, shortboards. Yeah. Quite consistent.
I spent a lot of time there actually.
Did you?
Yeah. Do you know Dave Byrne from Byrne Surfboards?
I know who he is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's a real close friend of mine. So I go and stay with them. And my nephews all live in Woonona.
Yeah.
And Bulli. So I go surf with them. I don't know if you know. Do you know Chad Hobby? No. He's like lives at Sand and surfs at Sand.
Chad who's shaped for Skip.
No, Chad Hobby.
Shaped for Skip.
No, he doesn't shape for Skip. He's a plumber. He's a real good little surfer. Surfs out sand all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, but I go surfing with
them. I don't
love going surfing with them.
Would you do, growing up and stuff, would you do a lot of missions down the South Coast as well?
Yeah, well, when we were growing
places
up,
like Ulladulla and whatnot.
We had a holiday house in Ulladulla, or in actual Narrawali. So right in that little, and there was like, talking to Dad the other day, he's like, do you know how much we bought that block of land for? And I was like, what? And I was like, But anyway, we had like a little house down there. We spent, days and days and days at Green Island and golf course and potholes and just all those places, just like when there was no one, back when it was like, you talk about the farm before, I still remember going in there when it was like a cow track, and like you had to pay the farmer, and then you go down there now, you're like, holy hell, they've built on all this. Sure. The Shallows, Red Sands.
Shallows at Shell Harbour. Yeah, there's a car park right down at the farm now, but it's still got the magic there. I actually grew up in a place called Nowra. I grew up in Nowra.
Oh, did you? Yeah, cool.
And so I know it's a little bit inland, but I've lived in Wollongong for 25 years or so, I think. But it's now that I'm a bit older and I've travelled the world and lived in various parts of the world, I've realised how special this zone from like Sydney down to Ulladulla is, and I mean even beyond that is special. But I just feel so grateful, man. It is a special part of the world. So.
You know what I love? I love like every time I drive down to my parents lived down in Ulladulla for probably about 10 or 15 years. They lived right on the golf course, and I'd be driving down there, on a Friday night or something like that. As soon as I get past Nowra, I'd wind down the windows, and you can just smell the eucalyptus trees, and you're just like, man, I'm like, I'm going somewhere special, I just found that was like, that smell and just that Christmas and, just the greenery and just everything about that area is just special. Should we even be talking about this on a podcast?
We talk about this a lot. I see, like I have a lot of surfers go, I don't want to mention the spot and stuff. And me and Josh the other week, Josh Koo, were joking about how, like, he mentioned Vui. He's like, oh, I shouldn't say that. And it's like, let's face it.
The cat's out of the bag.
Like, some of these spots are secret anymore. He says secrets anymore.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say, like, I feel like when you go to the South Coast, I personally feel the indigenous spirit down there. I feel that magic of the place. There is a strong,
Yes.
I mean, obviously the history is the indigenous heritage and history there is so deep, and I actually think that's what really makes it what it is.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I see those when I see those black cockatoos, when I see black cockatoos flying around, I'm just like, the spirit animals, man.
Yeah,
They
man.
really are,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, all that area is so special, because it's sort of been allowed to be like that, with the coastline and
would you and your dad go on many trips together?
yeah, we still, we sort of haven't in the last couple of years, but I've done like motorhome trips with them to New Zealand, and when I was a kid, that's how I got around. Like, we'd load the car up on the weekend and just go surfing somewhere. And like a lot of the times like that, like we'd be with like real good mates, his old mates, and they'd be like just old surfers, like that, talk about like voodoo and stuff like that. Like all those guys, they were the first guys to surf there. You know what I mean? They found all that. And there's actual stories about, Dad was telling me a story once about the first time they ever found Green Island, because there was like a hollow. There was this one guy that used to go down there all the time, and he knew about his secret spot. So they actually listened to him talking to his other friend that went down there, because the shaping room walls or the in the factory were actually quite thin, and they found out exactly where it was. So then they found Green Island. And it was like, like it means a lot today, but back then it probably wasn't much,
I still think the magic's there. I mean, and like, I just think wherever you are in the world, if you're dedicated enough I think you can still explore, and you can find those moments of quiet and isolation in the surf. And I actually found it at Uluwatu in Bali just a few months ago. Yeah, like the busiest surf break in probably Indonesia, and I went up, a section of that reef, right? Up the reef. And me and a mate had it all to ourselves for like 3 or 4 hours, and, perfect sort of head high waves. And I'm just like, there's magic there. And I think over time, the most dedicated are constantly rewarded. So, and also like just keeping that positive energy, I think the ocean provides. And again, Josh Koo, my last guest, he that's what he manifests. And then he attracted probably one of the waves of the year at Manly this year, on a huge sort of east swell, and at a spot that doesn't break that often. And I just feel like that it's because of the good energy he constantly puts in the surf. He got rewarded for it. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I'm a big believer in that. You sit there and you be cool to people. You might let you might see some kid struggling, and you tell him he's had a good wave, or do something cool, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm sitting out here and the best wave's coming through, and I'm in position. Oh, wonder how that happened. Maybe it was because I was being a nice guy,
There it is, brother. Hey, listen, man, it's been epic. And I ask all guests to come to the podcast with a cause they want to support or advocate for. Could be a charity or just a philosophy in life. But what do you got for us today?
Yeah, well, I spoke to you about this before we started, but I've recently, pandemic sort of time, I had a separation, and I was kind of approaching things a lot differently. Like as men, we kind of we speak, off the top of our tongue, off the top of our head, and a lot of times, like, we say things and then we regret it afterwards, and it actually sort of like makes us, regret those decisions, or whatever we meant to say wasn't articulated properly, so therefore it wasn't received in the right manner. So I just want to say, to all men, women as well, but mostly men, because it's our testosterone thing. if we approach these problems or these crises in our lives with love in our heart and keep stepping forward, I think you'll find that no matter the outcome of what you're actually trying to achieve, whether it be negative or positive, if you haven't compromised your personality or your ideals, by just approaching those problems with love in your heart, I think you'll actually become a better person and you'll actually be perceived as a better person, and then things will start rolling in place for you. So, thank you.
Yes, man. Yes, sir.
Actually,
what a rad message. Fuck, man. I need to hear it.
Can I just tell you a quick little story about how I came to that? Is that all right? Okay. So I went to...
absolutely, man.
Okay, so, and this is how I learnt that, right? I went to, and I might actually tear up when I tell you this story, but, okay, so I found out my kids were moving away to the Gold Coast, right? And I was like heartbroken. I cried on my bed for like 3 days. And my girlfriend, my partner now, she grabbed me and we went to Stratty for a week. And, just went over there, and we're on the ferry on the way over there, and it started raining, started spitting on the way over there. And it turned out to be that week that all hell broke loose, and all of Brisbane flooded, and the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast all flooded. So we had to make a mad dash out of there. And we got out of there, and I was like beside myself, just going, life couldn't get any worse. And we got stuck on the way home for 3 days on top of a mountain at a service station, stuck in the floods because it was flooded all around us. So it was in our same clothes, in a leaky car, for 3 days, eating servo food, with the lingering thing of, my kids are getting taken away from me to live on the Gold Coast, what's this going to be? And I was just feeling like crap, So anyway, so right at this, that was my lowest moment, of that experience. At this moment, and also all around us, like the social breakdown of like people getting stuck for 3 days and everyone was anxious, and, there's this knock on my door, and I wind down the window, and there's this little Indian man sitting out there in the rain, and he lived around the corner, and he'd gone and made curry for everyone who was stuck in the floods to give them food. And it was kind of at that point that I kind of realised that, like, this guy, he's probably been racially abused, he's probably had all this stuff given to him, but you know what? He's just taken it out of his time to go, you know what? I'm a good person, and I'm going to approach this with love in my heart, and I'm going to go make food for these people because these people are hungry. And at that point, like, it was like everything changed for me at that particular point. And just this little guy doesn't even know that he changed my life. But at that point, like, and then I just went and spoke to my ex-partner and said, hey, we need to sit down and talk about this. But from that point, it reminded me, you know what, there is good people out in the world. And you know what, no matter what has happened to you, just keep moving forward with love in your heart. Sorry,
it's the best, cried. No, you can cry, but it's the best, man. I know I need to hear this so much. You don't even realise. I was just thinking, like, that little guy, like, they say when the student's ready, the teacher appears, right? And it's really cool. I think resentment and holding resentment is so poisonous and toxic. And definitely. I know for me personally, oh God, it's like the hardest thing I don't do it well. I don't do resentments well. I hold on to them. So I really appreciate that story. Thank you.
No, that's cool. And thanks to that little Indian guy. I don't know who you are, but you know what? You've got some good karma coming to you, brother.
There it is. And there's, again, this theme of being of service, like acts of service. I just think it's a hack. It's a life hack to help you with depression and anxiety. And there you go. Just like if you do nothing else, just go and help someone. And I just think there's three things, like eat well, sleep well, and help someone if you're in a really shit time. If you do nothing else, just start there and see what changes. So maybe that's the good take-home message as well.
Well, you'll actually feel a value.
And what do you mean?
Just even, you know, like you go, all right, so I've gone and helped my mate move his house. You know what? I've been of value to him because I've helped him. And you go, well, you know what? Because he actually appreciated me, I'm appreciated. I'm of value. You got to think about this, right? And I was saying it to my son the other day. You know, like you know what we talk about, like pirates and like knights and like, you know, Vikings and all these like crucial people in history, right? And one day in like 200-300 years, surfers will be like that. Because, you know, if we keep on our current path, like the path that, say, Kelly and John and all those guys are kind of going on with their environmental crusades, and, you know, like just even you think about like the 70s and the 80s, like a lot of the surfers opened up the world, you know what I mean? Like they actually forged the path through Indonesia, through, you know, through all that stuff, opened up the world. So like that mid-70s kind of period was just such a, you know, through surfboard factories, and, you know, they were so revered, and it was kind of, there was drugs coming through there, you know, like there was all kinds of walks of life going through there. Now it's a little bit kind of like, you know, but in those days it was just wild.
Wild West.
Yes.
Yeah, it just seems like it was such a transformational time, you know. It was all new and progression was fast in every way.
And there sort of seemed like there was less social filtering. You know, like today, you know, someone says the wrong thing and they get vilified. You know, back then it was like, you know, you could just do what you want, not speak, you know. But
how do you feel about that culture? But how do you feel about that culture of cancel culture? Like you speak your mind, you get cancelled or vilified.
Oh yeah, I think like, you know, some of it's valid, but I think it'll actually cancel itself. You know, like I think it's just a trend and it'll come and go, and, you know, like how many people are we going to cancel? Is everyone just going to get cancelled? No, it'll just cancel itself. I just ride it out, mate. I'm in Sunny Coast.
That. Yeah, I like that.
You know,
it's the best up there. It is nice. What do you mean you're in the Sunny Coast? Why? It's mellow up there.
Oh, like there's plenty, you know, like up here it's kind of like not that hustle bustle life, you know. People kind of get, it's probably a bit more like Wollongong or South Coast or whatever, a bit more like Ulladulla, say, you know, where, you know, they're real people, you know, you're having real conversations. It's not like people, you know, business or whatever, you know, like it is in Sydney or, you know, all those sort of places. And I'm sorry to speak out of line, but I just think that like up here is just a little bit more accepting of diversity or just different points of view.
Interesting.
If that makes sense. You know, like everyone's kind of allowed their own space. You know, we're not living on top of each other. You know, we don't have to worry too much about, you know, because we haven't got someone in a unit block or an apartment block above us. It's kind of like we've got a big spot of land and that's how we live. And, you know.
Like people are less stressed as well.
Definitely.
And I just see like a lot of I see a lot of road rage, and I just feel like road rage is the strangest thing, and I just think it's a byproduct of a culture that's not living correctly. If a person can be so enraged by someone making a small mistake on the road, or, you know, not going fast enough or sitting in the wrong lane, and they can become enraged by that, there's just something not right. And I see a lot of it, and I see a lot of stressed out people trying to keep up with a very expensive lifestyle.
Oh yeah.
That it's just, again, forcing them to work in jobs like you mentioned that they despise, and they're becoming sick from it.
Yes.
Mentally.
Yeah, so, definitely. And then their kids.
The Sunny Coast is amazing.
Oh yeah. Don't come here. I mean, don't. We've shut the gate.
But the reality is, like, a lot of people can't afford. They're stuck. Now I hear that here too. Like Wollongong's blown up since the pandemic. Like everyone's like, everyone's moving down from Sydney. It's like this is bullshit. But it's still not that bad. It's these places they're still gonna be really good places to live. Our population's not that big overall, so.
Oh, Wollongong's still rad. You're still protected by that escarpment, and it's still rad.
I've found when I leave Wollongong, I miss the escarpment. I naturally go looking for it in the corner of my eye. Like it's always in your peripherals. When you're in the surf, you're looking at it. When you're driving, if you're driving north, it's in your left peripheral. And when you're driving south, it's in your right peripheral. It's just in me. It's bizarre.
I think I know what it is. I think the days are longer everywhere else.
What is it?
The days are longer everywhere else because the sun actually goes down about half an hour earlier in Wollongong because of that.
I never thought of that, dude.
Yeah, it's like when you're at Uluwatu, right? You're at the Bukit, and the days seem like they go longer.
Yeah,
that's why, because the sun sets right on the water. There's no land, and also you're staring at the sun for that last 2-3 hours of the day. You're staring straight into the sun. Whereas on the east coast of Australia, the sun comes up in the morning, sets on the land, so it's kind of a different.
Yeah, it's so good for you. I mean, you sound like someone who's done a lot of early mornings in his life, watching the sun rise overseas, and you're looking at the sun in the mornings,
Yeah.
But I think not everyone is up that early, whereas there's something so therapeutic about getting the sun in your eyes in the morning and the evening,
Yes, definitely. No, it's
such a good lifestyle.
Bookends the day.
Ah, man, it's been such a pleasure. Such a good dude. I don't know. I feel like I could just ramble on with you for hours, but it's a beautiful Saturday, so I'll let you go on with your day. But is there anything you want to end on? Anything you want to finish on, Dane?
No, I won't finish. I think I've said enough. I'll just say I'm about to take the dogs down the beach for a run.
All righty, man. Well, let's leave it there. And, Mr. Dane Wilson, thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.